I feel like as indie filmmakers, we're always looking for what the model is for earning money. And for some indie filmmakers, if they want to remain indie, or they at least want to make money by selling their indie products to Hollywood, there's always the question of how. How do I get noticed at festivals? How am I doing the cutting edge thing that is the right ticket for streamers and studios to want to purchase, make a deal? And does it give insight to what the future of money making for indie filmmakers is going to look like? Duplass brothers, Mark Duplass, he's been on a mission, I would say, for years to try to find the right model for indie filmmakers to execute on a production, on a story, and make it sell. How does it work, right? And there's a new phenomenon that's brand new, that is at the very beginning, that seems to be like it could be a working model that potentially could have major impacts in the indie filmmaking space. So he was recently on stage with a handful of other people, and he shares some thoughts. So let's go ahead and watch this video. Let's glean some of the wisdom and ideas that he has.
So Mark, I'm going to start this with kind of what feels like an obvious question. What is indie TV?
I don't know yet. We're trying to figure it out. So
the idea is indie TV. Let's see what he has to say.
I think that this idea got started, Mel and I have produced a show along with my brother Jay called Animals for HBO, where, we sort of animated a few episodes in an apartment. It could be done cheaply. It made sense to be done cheaply. And that was about 9 years ago. And we felt like, you know what, this is really cool. And we brought it to the buyers, and HBO ended up ordering 2 seasons of the show for us. We're like, this is incredible. We've cracked a new model. And that was at a time in the business where I think the big streamers, everybody, they felt like, you know what, this show is cheap. It's not going to be our next Game of Thrones, but it's added value. It might get some good reviews. Maybe it'll win a couple of awards. This is worth it. And that's over. It sucks, but
the Calvary isn't coming.
Yes, it's over. I mean, it's really, and Mel and I.
So what's over? What he's saying is that streamers seeing a story and giving people a chance on a low budget, giving filmmakers a chance to produce something on a low budget, extending a hand, right? And he's saying those days are done. That's not going to happen anymore. If that's in your brain of what you would like to do someday, get it out of your brain. Like Casey Neistat, right? He and his brother did an HBO show, right, as well in New York. And that's kind of what launched him into doing his YouTube content, becoming a massive success on YouTube. But he got an HBO deal for low costs.
Over the last few years, as the industry has changed, as we're starting to see sort of the bust of the boom of peak TV, right? For those of you who are around this, you're noticing, it's like the pitches that we used to be able to bring out and sell right away, they're saying no. And Mel and I are like, do they not like us anymore? Like, I feel really insecure. This sucks. And then we started talking to our friends, and they're like, yeah, they're not buying anything that's not like huge IP, trying to hang on to their hemorrhaging subscribers.
So let's use Netflix as an example. I got Netflix on the brain tonight. The IPs we're looking at, they're going to come out with Narnia. All right. That's an IP that they're diving into. Squid Games is an IP that's been proven successful. Stranger Things is an IP that's proven successful. The Witcher, I wouldn't say is proven successful, but it is an IP they desperately want to make. That's why they recasted Henry Cavill with a Hemsworth, because they want so desperately for it to work. He's basically saying that all the streamers are doing the same thing that big Hollywood for theatrical runs have always done, which is, we're going to say no to you because we are only taking chances on big IP stuff, because that is the only option we have to try to keep subscribers or make money. It's like they are unwilling to take risks.
As everybody
it's not you,
cuts
it's
it.
them.
Yes. So we're like, well, shit. Now what do we do? And look, independent film has been around for years. It came to festivals like South by Southwest and Sundance in the early 90s. There was no ecosystem at the time. People would just make these movies because they weren't being made in the system. Some of them sold to the big companies, but there were a lot of beautiful films around, unique voices, underrepresented stories. And what happened is an entire ecosystem sprung up around them. Distributors like IFC and Magnolia said, like, we're just going to go into business and put these movies out. And it worked. So we're sort of diving in a little ahead of the curve here with the hope that we're going to make these things, because even if we try and sell these as pitches, the studios are so fear-based right now. There's not a chance that the correct artistic vision is going to make it through that gauntlet anyway. So we might as well just double down and not make a pilot. Let's make a whole season of television so it's ready to go. And maybe we get lucky and maybe one of the big streamers comes along and they want to put it up on their service. That sounds awesome, but maybe not. And maybe something new and alternative will spring up in its absence. And we don't exactly know what that is.
And I do have to say, like, this is extremely ambitious, and he's right at the cutting edge of this new idea, because indie film has always been, if you want to do a TV show, do a pilot. If you want to do a film, do an indie film or a short film or something. But for goodness sake, do not spend all of your time and money producing a multi-episode series in the independent position. Now, let's look at a few examples of who have done that. The Chosen, right? The Chosen, directed by Dallas Jenkins, is on his 5th season of an independent series that has proven extremely successful. And now they've created their own studio based around the success of this Chosen, and they're going to be doing more shows on biblical stories afterwards. So what he's saying is that, like, the indie market is kind of shifting away from films and entering the space that streamers are interested in, which is series. And the reason they're interested in that is because they don't have to come up with brand new films and stories all the time. They just keep expanding on existing stories, and it's a lot more predictable. It's a lot more guaranteeing of outcomes in some capacity, and it keeps audiences coming back week after week after week, or binging a show in a very long format for multiple hours. So he's saying that the indie market needs to be following suit and doing shows, but produce the entire season from a position of being indie. Very fascinating.
Yet. But we felt like, this sort of thing that we call like the special middle of storytelling, the things like that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was doing, that turned out to be big shows. Those shows are going to die unless, like, we kind of collectively come together and make sure they don't.
You talked about the infrastructure and how IFC and Magnolia and Dark Sky and all these other companies came along and said, like, well, okay, we're going to put this stuff out. At the same time, we need the audience and we need the outlets. Now, I'm going to be a bit of a downer here. My T-shirt is actually a little bit of an Easter egg for today. This is from the Austin online studio Rooster Teeth, which has been going for 20 years. It was doing video literally before YouTube. It had a big subscriber base. They were incredibly loyal. And last week, they announced they were going out of business because they couldn't make the money work and had been hemorrhaging cash for 10 years. They said, like, the old model of ads and a few subscribers just isn't going to do it anymore. And so, getting off to a good, bright start. What's the infrastructure?
Anyway, good night, everybody. Congratulations.
How do you, when you look at it now, how do you look at the same kind of opportunities that IFC and those kind of companies saw, and the burgeoning festival scene? What do you see as the possibilities for starting to build this infrastructure that you need?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too into the weeds and like bore if
I'm ready.
Are not into this, but
get in
quickly, absolutely validate everything you're saying. Super concerned, and that's a reason why a lot of this middle is going away.
So what he's saying is that production studios that survive off of ads and subscribers are not necessarily holding up, or the cost of production cannot float a large organization on just occasional like ads and cheap subscriptions. And maybe they're referring to like Patreon or a model that's similar to that, like a monthly subscription kind of thing.
But here's the really fun part about independent TV. When you make an independent film, you come here and you're like, I got one shot at this. I bring it to the festival. I hope they buy it. And then it's over, right? Because it's just a one-off thing. TV has the opportunity for future seasons.
Mm-hmm.
They have this opportunity that we see now where shows that were not popular, like Suits, all of a sudden go on Netflix and then become like the #1 show 7 years after it aired. And the Suits are—
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'd never seen Suits. And when it went on Netflix, I started watching it. And I honestly don't care for the show that much, but I did watch a crap ton of Suits. So I'm a part of those numbers. Yeah.
are aware of this potential value of these packages. So the more episodes you make, you get yourself towards an indomitable package that could one day be very valuable, outsourced to different people. And so the way you do that is, we make a group of very disparate shows up here. Some of them are really premium shows that can really, air, on the Netflix and the HBOs, and some are smaller documentaries and things like that. But the way to do it, in my opinion, is in the absence of the big, wonderful sale, it's, well, maybe you don't buy my worldwide rights for perpetuity. Maybe we just put it on your channel for a year license, and I lose a little bit of money up front. But there's a fee here to relicense in the event of success. And then if there's enough of that there, and then you start to drag them into the boat for the second season, then all of a sudden, like poker, they become pot committed because they start to see, holy shit, we've got 24 episodes here that's really licensable to all these other streamers that are going to be popping up, to the fast TV channels that are popping up, that while, yes, ad dollars are not what they once were, they're there, So I think that for us, the way we're looking at this is like, it's less about the big smash sale that used to happen at South by Southwest or Sundance in the 1990s, but slowly building something and having that ownership of it. And most importantly, to get the fucking thing made when it's just not going to get made, and have your creative control.
And in everything that he was saying, there's actually a new show that is at festivals right now that is a multi-episode season of indie film. Now, it does have Mark Ruffalo, I believe, guy who plays Hulk in the Avengers. He does play in this series, this indie TV series, and it's called Hal and Harper. And it's basically hasn't been picked up by any major studio yet to put on their streaming. However, there is a high probability, based on how it's being received, that it will. So what's interesting is that everything he said is kind of like we're treading new ground here. We are trying to take our, pickaxe and find the diamond in the rough. We are trying to cut away the stone and find the one stone, the one gem that's valuable, and that is the model for indie filmmakers to do what they love and also make money, to also be a part of a system where they can support themselves monetarily. Now, I'm a huge advocate, actually, for filmmakers, independent filmmakers, to be creating an audience online. And although they said in regards to Rooster Teeth, the ads and subscription model didn't necessarily work. However, hear me out. For indie filmmakers, it is extremely valuable to be supported. It is extremely valuable to, no matter really what size you are or what ambitions you have to grow your viewing audience for your film. I know for most people, it's always just a little bit bigger, right? But it is extremely valuable to have your own audience. And if you have a large enough audience, then even if your projects cannot be floated, at least your income can be. At least it keeps you in the world of production and filmmaking, to think, to try ideas, and to maybe flop and maybe lose money, but you know that your audience is there at the ground floor to catch you if a production flops, because they are there for you. They are there to support you. And so I wouldn't necessarily say building a business like all of the income is based on subscriptions and ads, unless you are dealing at a very high high level like Netflix is, where you have hundreds of millions of subscribers. And even at that level, we are seeing that they themselves are struggling, because I don't know if you noticed, but Netflix just raised their subscription cost to like $25. So I wanted to show you an example of a YouTuber who is a filmmaker, who's gone to Hollywood, has had his dreams crushed, and they essentially used his 3-season dream cartoon show he's always wanted to do as a tax write-off, and it's disappeared off of the streamers. His name is Olin Rogers. You guys might know about him. He was big on YouTube years ago. He uploaded super constantly. He's still putting YouTube content up, but he shifted. His dream was always to be a filmmaker, and he loved cartoons, right? And he did the show called Final Space. He sold it to TBS. TBS got sold and it shifted hands, and then they did 2 more seasons, and then that studio decided they were going to cancel the show and get rid of it, remove it, make it disappear, and use it as a tax write-off. And this thing that he spent his whole life to go to Hollywood and make high caliber stories, and for him, cartoons, his dreams was a tax write-off. That is the problem with the Hollywood system. And if you're an indie filmmaker, you need to remain holding the power of your own destiny. What was really good about Olin Rogers is that he is a very lovable personality. He's very genuine human, and he had a fairly large group of people in his audience that would support him no matter what he did. So when he took a long break from uploading to YouTube, his audience was still there and excited to watch his Final Space show. When it got canceled and he came back to YouTube and was figuring out what he was going to do next, they were still there to watch him go through that process and support him. Like in 2023, he started pushing this new show called Godspeed, which is an independent animated cartoon series. So this is basically him taking the control back and saying, I want to do this independently. And he put out a Kickstarter to get the initial pilot created, which he did. You can watch the pilot on his YouTube channel right now. Just look up Godspeed, Olin Rogers, or Godspeed short film. But when he set off to do the Kickstarter, he raised $306,000 for a pilot. Now in Hollywood, that's not a lot of money that will go very far. But for a YouTuber who has a lot of connections with graphic artists and animators, and he just needs a couple people to make it happen, and then he's got all of the filmmaking know-how to do the voice and to direct it and to write the story himself, $300,000 for like a 15-20 minute pilot is a fairly large budget for an indie filmmaker with a dream. And I believe he even had some investors and whatnot, and he's actually in process to make this an entire series as independent. So he himself is going through the avenue of independent TV, but utilizing the audience and the loyal following that he has built. It was the audience that was there to pick him back up and help fund his next project so that he could stay busy, stay in the mindset of storytelling and animation and cartoons, and he didn't have to go get a job at Walmart or something for a period of time. He was able to stay focused and recover and actually continue creating, and is in the process of doing like 3 different projects that are super cool, including Godspeed, because he had the audience that was there to catch him when everything crumbled beneath his feet. That is the power of having an audience. And so everything that we've looked at today, all of the ideas, indie TV, this could potentially be the next big thing to get your project sold, which basically means you have to do all the work. And then you sell it, or you let a streamer run a test to see if it builds value. But when it comes down to it, before you do any of that, you need to have your ducks in a row. And in my mind, the best way to do that for 2025 moving forward is to have an audience of people who are here for you, who want your projects, Because if everybody else says no, you know you got your core following that's going to always say yes, and they are your true supporters, and they are the people that care about you and will watch your film no matter what you put out. Whether it's a TV show that's dropped on YouTube for free or an indie film that is put on your Patreon behind a paywall, they are going to be there for you, and you will make sure that your lights stay on. If this was helpful and this was interesting to you, definitely subscribe to the channel. We do videos like this all the time, and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought was the most interesting point that was made by Mark Duplass. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for liking this video. I'll see you next time.